Good evening, everybody. It gives me much pleasure to welcome you here on the webinar of how to make your PMO generate value and thrive. My name is Amr Anani, and I am a research volunteer in the BMI KSA chapter. And I will be, and it gives me much pleasure to be your host tonight. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Americo Bento. Mr. Bento is a BMB certified. It's one of the main authorities in the PMO topic in the America, having more than 20 years of experiences as an international speaker, consultant, researcher, and executive, and he is an author as well. Mr. Bento is chair at the PMO Global Alliance, which is the worldwide community of PMO professionals. He is a professor at many universities in America and Europe, and a regular columnist at the BMI World magazine. Mr. Bento received the BMI Project Management Institute Distinguished Contribution Award in 2011 in Dallas, Texas, for his contribution to the development of the project management practices. Mr. Bento led the 6-year research project that created the BMO value rank. Today, it's the most used methodology in the world to create, evaluate, and monitor BMOs focused on value generation. The BMO Global Awards, the largest awards in the world for BMOs, was created by Americo Bento and counts with the participation of more than 500 professionals and companies from more than 100 countries. All this significant set of experiences enables Mr. Bento to know deeply hundreds of project management and PMO success stories, which inspire the valuable insights that he shares in his speeches, workshops around the world. He is going to talk about how to make your PMO generate value and thrive. The presentation will be led by Mr. Bento for the coming 40 minutes, and a question and answer session may take place within the rest of the agenda. Please share your question with me even during the webinar. I will leave the floor now to Mr. Bento. Mr. Bento, the floor is yours now. Wishing you another valued and rich speech. Good luck.
Thank you very much. So welcome everyone. First of all, I'd like to thanks PMI Saudi Arabia chapter. It's a pleasure to collaborate. I was saying a few minutes ago that I had plans to visit Riyadh last year, but because of the pandemic, it was impossible, but I'm sure that soon we will have an opportunity to meet in person. I live in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, right? I'm here trying to escape from COVID. It's not easy at this moment. The situation here is a little serious, but I lead the PMO Global Alliance, that is today the largest community of PMOs and PMO professionals in the world. We have around 12,000 members in more than 100 countries. And it's very interesting because Saudi Arabia is our third country in number of members, right? So it's something that I personally feel very, very proud. We have a lot of supporters in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East, and that's something that is a great thing, because we can work together in many projects that are led by the community. So today, I will try to focus on some specific topics, specific insights that can bring useful information, valuable information that you can use immediately in your company, in your PMO, or even if you are a consultant, right? So I will share with you some knowledge. This knowledge is based on research that was conducted by our community, the PMO leaders around the world, right? And of course, I can't give you a lot of details, but I will try to focus on the most important points. So you will see, some interesting ideas. And later, if you want more information, if you want to learn more, you can find more information in the internet, and also you can keep in touch with me, and I will provide some guidance about how you can learn more and how you can use this knowledge that we will share with all of you today. Okay, so let's start. When we talk about PMOs, I couldn't say that PMOs are a trend, because they are not a trend. PMOs are something very consolidated around the world. So what we see is that probably if we take, I don't know, the 1,000 most important companies in the world, we will see that all of them possibly have a PMO, or possibly they already had a PMO, right? So it's something that makes sense, because the objective of someone that create a PMO is something very simple. People want to centralize some functions around project management, program management, portfolio management, because they believe that providing these functions in a centralized way, there will be some kind of benefit, right? Cost reduction, a better productivity, more efficiency, a better competence, right? Because the focus is managing projects. So there are many different possibilities, many different benefits, but a PMO, the essence of a PMO is the idea that we are centralizing some specific functions related to project management, program management, and portfolio management. But on the other hand, if that's something, if what I told you is something that all PMOs have in common, we also have something that is a very important characteristics of all PMOs. They are very different, right? So it's almost impossible to say that we can have two similar PMOs, even when they are providing the same functions, the same services, for example, methodologies, because there are many specific aspects that will make them different, right? A lot of aspects, in fact. So it means that when we take, for example, a successful experience that was absolutely great in that company, and we try to bring it to our company, copying everything, uh, what happens usually is that it's not so successful as we expect. And why? Because that PMO, that configuration, everything that was created at that company makes sense for that company, right? For their needs, their expectations, their pains, right? So every time that we are creating a PMO, we have to understand that we need to establish a solution that makes sense for us, for our company. And look, sometimes the solution that makes sense today is not the one that will make sense tomorrow. For example, when we talk about the COVID, the pandemic, right? The PMO before the pandemic possibly will not be the same PMO during the pandemic and after the pandemic in many different countries, in many different companies. And why? Because the scenario will change, right? The scenario has changed, actually. So things that were important at that time possibly will not be a priority at this time. And new priorities will arise. So that's something that we have to understand, how we can be aware about these expectations, these needs, and adapt what we are doing to deliver real benefits, to deliver a real value for the organization, for those people that are paying the bill, right? Because of course there is a cost, the cost of the PMO. Okay. All right. So I mentioned the word value, right? And when we talk about value, usually what comes to our mind is money, right? So how much money the PMO is generating or how much money the PMO is saving. It would be great if we could show this number, but it's not easy like that, right? There are many attempts on the academic area, a lot of pieces of research that already try to show these numbers, but it's not something really easy to be done because the distance between what the PMO is doing and the business usually is really long, because project management for most of the companies, it's not the business. Project management supports the business. And when we talk about the PMO supports project management. So again, the distance is really long. So if we want to create like correlations, between what you are doing at your PMO and what is the impact in the business, is something that is really difficult to be done, and all the attempts in the last years were frustrating. But it's okay. I'm not saying that there is no value. Yes, there is value. It's not a coincidence that many companies have PMOs, right? But looking to PMOs around the world, and now I'm talking about the experience that comes from our global community. Also, we have, every year we have the PMO Global Awards, which recognizes the best PMOs and the best PMO professionals in the world. By the way, the president of your chapter was the PMO leader of the year in 2020. So congratulations to Bad. But the point is, if we take all these PMOs, we have some characteristics that they have in common that can give us some ideas about what we have to do, right? The point is, we have to generate value, okay. But the first question that we have to make ourselves is what value really means, right? Because we can't work with numbers very easy, as I said. There are a few situations that maybe we can do it, but usually it's not something easy to be done. Exactly, except if your PMO is managing projects, so it's a little different. But most of the PMOs, according to research, less than 20% of the PMOs, they manage the projects. Usually they support the management of the projects. So what I'm saying is, what the word value will mean.
Sorry, Mr. Bento, sorry interruption, Mr. Bento. Do
Yeah?
we need to present something now?
No, actually in a few minutes.
Okay, we're waiting. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Okay, true. Yeah,
right.
We're fine.
Yeah. I'm covering some specific points that will be needed to show you what I want.
Excellent.
The point is, when we talk about value, we have to think about the concept of perception of value, right? Perception of value is a feeling. It's not a number. Perception of value is what you have when you ask to your director, for example, what do you think about the PMO? And he says, I think it's something good. And maybe you will say, okay, but why? And he will say, I don't know exactly why, but I feel that it's something good. So what I'm saying is, according to the research conducted by our community, one of the most important points to make PMOs survive and thrive is being recognized as something of value, right? And this perception of value is exactly what we are looking for. But if you want to create perception of value, you also have to understand for whom you will create this perception, right? And these people are the customers of your PMO, because your PMO is like a service provider, right? And you have customers, or if you prefer, we can name them from now on stakeholders, the PMO stakeholder. The PMO stakeholders are all those people that will, in some way, they will, how can I say, judge what you are doing, right? Of course, you have some important stakeholders, for example, the executive level. You have other PMO, other stakeholders that maybe they are not so important in terms of power, right? I don't know, project members, project managers, but everyone will have a specific expectations about what you are doing, about what you will deliver as a PMO, right? And if you want to create a perception of value, you have to be able to deliver these expectations. That's exactly the point, okay? So the first step to do that is, one, I have to understand who are my stakeholders. The second point is I have to be able to group them in different groups, because I have to know, or I have to estimate the importance of each group. Again, there are groups that are more important, groups that are less important. So let me show you something now, right? I will share with you my screen. That's something that you can do by yourself, and you can check exactly what I will show you. So this is PMO Global Alliance website. By the way, I recommend that you join our community. You will be very welcome. So if you come here, log in, right? I'm sorry, resources, you will see the PMO value range methodology. This methodology was created by our community, and it's open for everyone. You can use it in your company, right? If you can teach about this methodology in your university if you want. And you can also create a free account that will give you access to many different aspects of the methodology. This methodology needs a lot, I could say, more hours to be explained, but I will focus on one point, one step of the methodology that is exactly what we are discussing here, how we can generate perception of value. So if you click here, you will go to the website, right? You can also look for pmovaluering.com. It will get you to the same website. And you can create, right, your free account. Just click here, okay? Actually, I've already have an account, so I will log in. Let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna log in, and now this is the web tool, right? The methodology doesn't depend on the web tool. You can use it without the web tool, but the web tool is very interesting, and that's why I'm showing that to you, because first of all, it will make the methodology a little more, how can I say, automatic, right? It will be easier to use it. And also because we have a database behind this tool, we have a database with the collective intelligence of our community. So it means that if you use the tool, you can get recommendations from the experience of leaders, many leaders, literally thousands of leaders around the world. I'm going to show you how. But again, you can do everything by yourself based on your experience, because the methodology doesn't depend on the web tool. But this web tool will make things a little funnier, I could say. So let me show you. This is a demo version, right? Because when you click here, when you start, if you click here, you will see just PMO demo version enterprise. I can see a lot of PMOs. Can you see that? Many different countries because these are PMOs that I'm monitoring and supporting them, but you will see only one. And if you go to setup my PMOs, here you can create a PMO by yourself. Okay, there are some limitations in this free account, but it's enough for testing and have access to all the knowledge that is available here in the database. Okay, but the point is, I told you that we have to define who are our stakeholders and what are the groups of stakeholders that we have. So let me show you how we do that. Functions define groups of PMO stakeholders. So first you will create the group of stakeholders. For example, executive directors, functional managers, PMO sponsors. And you can see that the relevance of each group is different in this example, right? It was my decision. Of course, if you say, no, all groups are important in the same way, it's okay, it's your decision. But usually we can say that, for example, the PMO sponsors, they have, a little more importance because at the end of the day, they will support, they will pay the bill of our PMO, right? So you can create some stakeholder groups. And after that, you will identify who are your stakeholders, who your stakeholders are. For example, project managers, directors, and you will input all of them here, right? So you can see all your stakeholders here. You can see that we have some team members, executive directors, PMO sponsors, and so on. All of them are here. Good. So now we are ready to the next step. And this step is very important. I told you that we have to generate perception of value, right? And of course, if you want to do that, instead of bringing pre-established models of PMOs, for example, let's implement a strategic PMO or agile PMO or a value management office. Forget about names, right? Because all these names, they try to tell you what we have to do. But what you have to do, you have to discover by yourself. And I'm going to show you how. It's exactly the opposite. America, but why there are many models? Because they exist to inspire you when you are creating your own model. So at the end of the day, you can say, well, my model is like a value management office. It's like an agile office, or maybe it's a mix of them, or maybe there is no similarity with any of them. It doesn't matter, because you have to create your own solution. And how can you do that? Now you know your stakeholders, right? And you have to understand what they expect in terms of services that you will provide. America, but what kind of services? In our methodology, we have 26 services, functions, potential functions. And they are potential because you can provide them or not. It's up to you. Let me give you some examples. You can provide a methodology, you can provide reports to the top executives, you can provide mentoring, you can provide training, you can even provide project management if the project managers are part of the PMO. It's possible, not usual, but possible. So the point is, what is the best mix for you? In a first glance, maybe you can think, okay, I will take this list of potential functions and I will ask my stakeholders about what they want, right? So I will go to my director and say, hey, would you like a methodology or would you like some training? The problem is when you ask this kind of thing, it's exactly like a physician, right, a doctor, saying to the patient, which kind of medicine do you want? from this list of medicines. And of course, the patient don't want any medicines. What they have is a pain, and they want to be healed, right? And that's why the patient is talking with a doctor, because it's expected that the expertise of this doctor can help him, right? So when you ask your stakeholders directly what they want in terms of all these possibilities of functions, they are not prepared to give you a really good response. And why? Because they don't know. They are not experts most of the time. So possibly they will say, oh, yes, I want a methodology, I want reports, or I don't need anything about this. And why? Because they don't care. What they really want is healing their pains. When I say pains, I'm talking about benefits, results. That's the language of the stakeholders, right? So if you ask them, do you want a methodology? No, but would you like to have a little more control over your projects in terms of time and cost? It looks good. And for example, a methodology can bring that. If you ask, do you need some reports? I don't know, maybe yes, but I don't know. But if you ask, hey, would you like to make decisions with more reliable information, and time to market information that you can use to make your decisions? What do you think about that? Again, now we are talking about results. We are talking about benefits, pains. And that's what these people, your stakeholders, understand, because that's their language, right? So when we say that we want more control of time and budget, it means that there are many different functions that can collaborate with that. Do you agree with me? For example, reports, yes, sure. Methodology, sure. But if you tell me that what you want is, for example, a more motivated team, because people are not really motivated, when they are working projects, methodology clearly is not a medicine that you have to prescribe, because methodology doesn't make people more motivated. It's right. Just our feeling can tell this. So what I'm saying is maybe the medicine will be another one, for example, training or mentoring. So what I'm saying is PMOs they really need to be different, because the pains are different, the expectations are different, and the functions that you are using, like a Lego, right, to create your PMO, they have to be aligned with what people is expecting. And why? Because if it's not, possibly you are doing something, you are providing some benefit, some function, technically perfect, so you are doing the best practice, but people can't realize the value of what you are doing. Why? Because the benefits that you are delivering are not the benefits that they need. You are treating different pains. They don't have these pains at this moment. They are not priority for them. Can you understand what I'm saying? So the point is, we have to understand their pains. And based on what we understand of these expectations, we will define what are the most important functions that can deliver these benefits expectations. That's exactly what happened. And that's why I told you that the PMO that was really good yesterday possibly will not be perfect tomorrow. And why? Because expectations can change, especially in moments like this, where we are living, a lot of changes for individuals, for companies, for PMOs. So now I know who are my stakeholders. They are grouped, right, depending on their level of importance, relevance. So the next step is to collect their expectations. So the methodology offers, I told you, a list of 26 potential functions, but also a list of 30 potential benefits. All of this came from the research that I told you, and 30 potential benefits. And in the database, we have something very interesting. You can create the same thing just based in your experience. But in the database, we have correlations between functions and benefits based on the experience of thousands of professionals. So, for example, for them, 99% of them said that when you are trying to get more control, reports are a good choice. But if what you want is more motivation, no, that's not how you can get it as a benefit, right? So if you want to try it, the methodology here, let me show how you can do that, right? You can make a test, and I think it will be interesting. Look, we are still in the step number 1. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the map. Look, step 1: define group of PMO stakeholders, define PMO stakeholders, and now collect PMO stakeholders' expectations. So if you click here, you will see your stakeholders, and you can click here and send a message to them. There are other ways to do that, but you can send a message to them. They will receive a message saying, hey, please click here to select your priorities. And a screen will open with 30 benefits in the left column. They will click in the 5 most important benefits for them, and these benefits will be moved to the right column, and they will put them in order of priority, and click OK. When they do that, we will have a status here of done, right, as you can see. If you want to know their priorities, you can see here. For example, the first stakeholder said that her most important pain is she needs better availability of information on lessons learned. The second one is effective transfer of knowledge. The third one is better communication among the project team, and so on, right? And if you go down, you will see the results. The results are twofold here. The first result is a list of the most important benefits in order of relevance. This relevance is calculated based on the relevance of each group and also on the priority established by each stakeholder, right? There is a simple calculation. We don't have time to show that, but it's very simple. So if you go down, you'll see that we have less important benefits, right? For example, the last one, just 0.4. Americo, but I can see here only 27, and you said that we have 30 benefits in this methodology. Yes, it means that no one chosen 3 benefits, and that's why they are not here, right? So the most important benefit for us is increased visibility of project progress. This is the most important. And how we can deliver these benefits. So it's again, it's a very simple calculation, and we can calculate the importance of each function considering the probability that they have to deliver these benefits, right? This probability comes from the database, the collective intelligence of the community. So based on this, look what we have. The most important function for this PMO looks to be provide project management tools. And the second one, a strategic project scoreboard. And the third one, project and program performance report, and so on. You can see that we have here 26 functions, right? And look what is really interesting. We have the relevance of each one. So the most important, 10%. The less important, 1%, 10 times less, right? And how it can be useful for you, because when you see that the last one is manage project documentation, you can say, hey, if I'm doing that, possibly it's not the best way to spend our resources, right? But why am I doing this? Oh, it's because we have a document project office, right? Let's suppose that it exists. And this kind of model says that we have to do this. That's exactly what I said. Don't be concerned about that. You have to create your model. If you do this kind of thing, it means that you are wasting resources, because this function, according to the experience of the community, is not the best function to deliver the most important benefits for your PMO. So you have to focus on the top functions, because they are much more important for you, right? They are the functions that will make you able to generate the benefits, and because of that, you will generate perception of value. So just to close, we have 3 minutes, right? So just to close this rationale, it's very common that people say, oh, my PMO failed because we had a lack of sponsorship, right? So we had a PMO, but our sponsors, they haven't support the PMO, and that's why our PMO failed. Think with me. A lack of sponsorship is the reason of your failure, or it's the consequence, or maybe the evidence of your failure. Because support, sponsorship, is something that you have to deserve, you have to earn. You know, if you are losing sponsorship, it's because you are not delivering benefits, you are not delivering what they expect, you are not making their eyes bright, you know, so they can't see the value. And of course, you will lose sponsorship. It's an evidence that you are failing. So think about that, because being recognized as a PMO depends much more than what people need, what your customers need, than what you want to do. Peter Drucker had a very famous saying that was like, nothing is more useless than doing the best way something that should not be done. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you think, oh, people can't see the beauty that what I'm doing something technically perfect, and people don't give, you know, attention. They don't like it. Sometimes it's because it doesn't matter if it's good technically or not, because what will make the difference is your ability to understand the needs, to understand your customers, your stakeholders, to understand their pains and adapt. Be flexible and adapt. Don't be concerned about following models. Don't be concerned about following successful experiences, even yours, because sometimes we have in our head like, oh no, a PMO must be like this. but the reality in statistical, in a statistical approach, shows that it doesn't exist. Your PMO don't need to be like this or like that. Your PMO should be like what your company really needs, right? So I invite you to test, this idea. Step number one, it's one of the stars of the methodology. It's very nice if you want to know a little more about this concept, because what is the most important concept is not the tool, is the understanding, because it will be a different approach. You are looking to the PMO now upside down. I'm not creating something technically perfect and saying, hey, you have to love it. No, no, no. Actually, I'm trying to understand their feelings and deliver something that I'm sure that they will worth, because it will generate perception of value. So if you have any kind of feedback, ideas, I will be really happy today and in the next days to discuss with you and clarify any point that you can have. Okay, so that's it. That's my insight, today's insight. Right, think about the needs of your stakeholders. That's possible the secret of success for many PMOs.
Thank you, Bento. Very much appreciated. A rich and informative speech as usual. We have actually some questions. We have a question from Mr. Mohammed Al Mandil says, can you describe how can we connect between the 30 benefits and the 14 problems in the PMO value ranking methodology?
You're talking about the problems. So you're talking about step number 7, because step number 7 is the ROI model, right? So there is a ROI model to calculate the return of investment on a PMO. And at this ROI model, what we have, instead of a relationship between functions and benefits, what we have is a relationship between functions and problems on project portfolio and program management, right? For example, functions, you already know some of them, but problems could be a lack of sponsorship, a lack of risk management, problems with contract management. So problems that are making you lose money when you are managing your portfolio, managing your projects, right? So what we did was something very similar to what we have in step number 1. We identified some experienced people and we asked them, hey, based on your experience, how much do you believe that, for example, when we are providing a methodology, we can solve or we can minimize the problem of lack of risk management, right? And these people, they answer like this. If they said, I totally agree, when we have a methodology, risk management is not a problem anymore, it means 100%. If they say most of the time, 75. If they say sometimes yes, sometimes no, 50. If they say it's something rare, 25. And if they say I've never seen that before, 0. So we consolidated all this information and analyzed it statistically. And again, we create correlations between functions that you are doing and problems that you have. And why? Because problems is exactly what make you lose money. So if you tell me what are your most important problems, and I know which functions you are doing and the probability that they have to solve these problems, we can estimate a potential of recovery, in terms of losses that you have because of that problems. So that's the basic of step number 7. We need, again, more time, but that's how I can summarize, this relationship between functions and problems, issues that we have.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We have another question from our colleague Mustafa Kamar. Mustafa said, based on your experience, do you recommend a BMB certified to go through B3O courses since it's oriented more to BMO more than BMI? What's your recommendation?
We are talking about different competencies, right? So if you try like
Yes.
a PMP, or I don't know, and now I'm in the middle of the process of IPMA level A certification. So it's another way to measure your competences. Most of these options from PMI, from IPMA and other organizations, they focus on project, program, and portfolio management. These competences are important for someone that works with PMOs, but they are not all. That's why if you are a PMO leader, you need more. You need more knowledge. You need different ways to see these challenges, because project management becomes one of the tools that you have available to meet expectations. So when you talk about P3O, for example, I think it's the most the oldest, right? One of the first certifications for PMO professionals. It's great. We based our methodology on the principles of P3O, because P3O is a more high level framework, so it's something a little different, but it's really good, really good. So it will help you to think about your PMO strategically. I'm not talking about strategic functions. I'm talking about think strategically about your PMO. The PMO value range and its certification, PMO CP, is focused on this methodology. So it will let you understand how to apply the methodology step by step, right? So it's more tactical in terms of setting up a PMO that can be really aligned with what our organization needs at this moment. It was created by people that are in the battlefield, so they don't have a lot of time to discussions, theoretical discussions, but it was based on research, and that's why it has a high value, I believe. We have today more than 20,000 people using around the world.
Yeah, thank you, Bento. Back to the BMO certified professional. What is the benefit to be BMO certified professional, and how long usually it takes for BMB certified to be BMO certified professional? This is a question received from Mr. Omar.
Excellent, thank you. What I see is any certification has two sides, right? There is a side that is related to how much recognized you will be, right? So, for example, there is a company that want to hire people, and one way that they have to filter, right, the candidates is saying that, okay, you are PMP or you are PMOCP. That's a way, because we know that the probability of finding someone good that also has these certifications is high. So it's a way to filter, right? So this is one of the reasons that make people get certifications. And there is another reason that is much more related to knowledge, right? So sometimes a new the certification is just the end, the consequence, right? The bonus. But what is the most important thing is what you're gonna learn with that, with your journey of study, right? And I could tell you that in our case, the PMOCP certification is of course, it's a certification. The first point is important, but the second point was what made us create the methodology, because we believe that this new knowledge is something really valuable. And if you are certified, it means that you are aligned with that. So I have the expectation that if I talk with someone that is PMO CP and I ask, hey, what was the reason of the failure of your PMO, right? Or of a PMO? This person will never say, oh, it was because we had a lack of sponsorship. I'm sorry, you are acting as a victim, and actually you are the protagonist. You have to bring the responsibility and create a PMO that can generate value. That's the spirit of the methodology. So the knowledge is something for me that is absolutely important. So it depends on the methodology, but all of them usually they have their, important points that will make you think and creating your all solutions.
Thank you, Bento. Can you briefly tell us about the new certificate, BMOCC?
Yes, sure. The idea, we have the PMO CP, this PMO certified practitioner, right? And the PMO
Yes.
CC is the PMO certified consultant. It's a new certification that will be released now in June. But this certification, it's focused on creating some opportunities for the certification holders to use the methodology as a business tool, right? So you can be an external consultant or even an internal consultant, no problem. But you will be able to use the methodology and some additional topics to create solutions by yourself. That's the basic idea, right? So you can analyze some results deeper. You can identify new needs that will arise because you are using the methodology. For example, needs of improving competences of your team, needs of improving the maturity of your PMO or even of your organization. So the focus is different. The focus of the PMO CP is the methodology, how it works, all the basic and some advanced points. PMOCC will try to help you to become a more prepared consultant for your company or for your customers. That's the idea.
Excellent. Do you consider yourself a competitor to the BMI?
No,
I mean the
actually,
Alliance.
yes, that's a good question. Since we founded PMO Global Alliance, I always repeat that for everyone. Let me tell you my background. Actually, I'm one of the founders of the first chapter of PMI in Brazil in 1999, a long time ago, more than I want,
Yes.
but a long time ago. I've been an officer, and since then, I'm a very active member. I attended the leadership masterclass 11 years ago. I have many friends on PMI. And what we try to do is, in fact, we try to be complementary because PMI focus on project management, and project management is too big, And when we talk about PMOs, we are talking about a smaller group, maybe, I don't know, 1%, 2% of the project management audience, right? Because you can have 500 project managers in a company and maybe only 5 people in the PMO. So 1-2% makes sense, but with very specific needs. So when we go to a worldwide scale, it's a big group. As I told you, we have 12,000 people. Maybe it doesn't look a lot, but it is because we are talking about this specific audience. And we can produce things for this specific group with specific needs. And also we work together with many chapters around the world, and even with PMI in Philadelphia. For example, a few weeks ago, I was meeting with Sunil, discussing some opportunities for a joint work in the PMO Global Awards. So I could say that we do everything to not look like a competitor because we don't feel that.
Excellent. Excellent. Bento, accordingly, for you, how frequent ring methodology concepts would be revised due to change of the industry, communities, priorities, and others? This is a question received from Mr. Omar.
Good. So let me tell you, when you are using the methodology, there is a cycle, right? An evaluation cycle. So every 12 months is recommended that you repeat this cycle, right? at least
Yes.
12 months. It may be one of the answers. But if he was asking about the methodology by itself, what I can tell you is the databases, they are updated from 6 to 18 months, depending on the topic, because sometimes there are some topics that they don't need to be updated all the time. And the
Yes.
methodology as a whole, every 4 years. So still this year, we will launch the second edition of the methodology, where we will we will bring all the feedback and ideas that we received in the last 4 years. So by the end of the year, we're going to have very interesting news, and ideas
Excellent.
about how to analyze it.
Excellent.
Oh,
We have last question received from our colleague Firas. He says, when it comes to digitization, can we consider the digitization as one of the key success factors for modern BMOs?
sure, I fully agree. Because if you think about that, what you see is a PMO can provide different functions, and there are many ways to provide these functions. One of them is keep all these functions in a very high level of digitalization, right? So you can use remote work, you can use artificial intelligence, because all of this, they are they are solutions and tools and approaches that you can use to improve what you are doing, right? So it's
Yeah.
still a methodology, but now you are using some other possibilities that you have available to improve the results of what you are doing. So digitalization is a very important trend. We saw that at the PMO
Excellent.
Global Awards last year.
Fair enough. Actually, we have an anonymous attendee who is wondering, why do you recommend BMO from the beginning, from the scratch, from based on what you recommend BMO as a business entity that can serve? Please, in just 10 minutes, 10 seconds, tell us about why do you recommend BMO to be a mandatory business unit in any organization?
Yes, because a PMO is something that can deliver the results that your stakeholders need. But to make that, you have to understand what they really need, right? So that's the answer, right? So that's the best way, by the way, to sell the PMO. If you just try to sell the PMO as a technical stuff, it will not work. You have to sell the
Yes.
PMO as a solution for the pains. That's the point.
In your speech, Bento, you realized that and focused and emphasized that the importance of the stakeholder, which is the voice of our customers in the BMO. When
Yeah,
it comes to the BMO stakeholders or the customers who don't know or don't realize the value of the BMO itself, initially, how to convince such a kind of stakeholder with the importance of the BMO. It's a different
I understand.
industry, organization size, objectives, and so on.
Yes, yes. So you're talking about the beginning of the journey, right? So we are still selling the idea,
Yes,
and
yes,
that's exactly the point. Because in
yes,
fact, you don't have a PMO yet. So now you will
yes,
make promises. That's the point. So the best promises that you have to
yes,
do, you have to make, are promises that people can see that something that makes sense to them. For example, I've already seen some companies using the step one of the methodology as a diagnosis. So there is no PMO yet, but we try to understand what people want and how our PMO could be configured, as a preliminary proposal. And I can use it to sell the idea of a PMO, because when I say, "Hey, we're gonna offer a methodology," and
yes,
possibly people will say, "But why?" It's because you said that you want more control. And that's how the world do when they are looking for a better control. You know what I'm saying?
Fine, Bento, that will be fine. But I think we have another issue, which is the bad performant PMOs. How to change the perceptions, the impressions on the top management about the importance of the PMO when it comes to a current weak or bad performed PMO.
Yeah, so you are talking about an existing PMO, right? So I have a PMO
Yes.
with a bad performance. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Right, right. So a PMO with a bad performance can be two things, right? It can be a bad performance because you are not providing your functions in the correct way. For example, your methodology is really bad. Your training, nobody wants. Your support is weak. So this is one problem. So it's a problem of performance of your PMO. But there is the other problem, that is you are doing what you are doing very well, technically well, but it's not what you are supposed to do, because what you are doing is not generating the benefits they want. So the two possibilities can happen. You know, you are a bad PMO because you have a bad performance, technical performance, or people see you as a bad PMO because you can deliver what they expect. That's it.
Yes. Thank you, Bento. One last question.
Sure.
Based on your experience with BMI chapters, many BMI chapters, what's your recommendation when it comes to create and establish a new BMO within our KSA BMI chapter?
Great. Today, we support some PMI chapters around the world with the creation of their PMOs. Some of them use the PMO value ring, the complete methodology. We let them use it. And the point is that a PMI chapter has two characteristics that we have to consider. The first one is that it's not a very big organization, right? And when we are talking about perception of value, it's easier to do that when you have a big portfolio, when you have a big organization, because the problems are also bigger, right? So when you solve them, it's easier for people to see. When we talk about NGOs or like a PMI chapter, it's a little different because you have to understand who are your stakeholders again, and maybe group them. For example, we have members, but we have members that are volunteers. And these members, two types of members, they have different expectations. So how can we serve them as a PMO? You know what I'm saying? It looks like everyone is similar because everyone is a PMI member, but no, actually they are not. They are different expectations. So if you can understand that, you can create a PMO that will deliver more value for them.
Excellent. Here in Saudi Arabia, sometimes we call on the biggest PMO within the organization Enterprise Project Management Office. So we create and establish satellite PMOs and small PMOs. We have some problem actually raised by Mr. Mustafa Kamar, says how to deal with the project managers who resist working with the PMO office, the cooperation level. How to
perfect. Yes,
we have give them more maturity.
Yes, we have two aspects to consider. The first one is it's really common in some organizations that we have like a mixed structure. So we have an enterprise PMO that looks to the most important in strategic projects, and in some specific areas where we have more projects like engineering, IT, we have a local PMO, a departmental PMO. And what the challenge is to keep them connected, because if these initiatives are totally disconnected, it will become something really crazy, because each one will use different processes, tools, you know, so the challenge is to keep them connected. But
Yes.
you asked about resistance, right? One thing that we have to consider, we covered this point in step 2 of the methodology, is that each function that you offer has a potential of generate perception of value over time. It's like a medicine that your physician prescribed to you. For example, a painkiller will generate perception of value right now in the short term. But an antibiotic, you have to take it for 7 days, 10 days, and you will see the results just in the long term. You know what I'm saying? So there are some
Yes.
functions
Yes.
of a PMO that can generate perception of value in the short term. For example, reports. And there are some
Yes.
functions,
Yes.
and they are the favorite functions of every PMO. They are like antibiotics. For example, methodology, portfolio management, benefit management, tools.
Yes.
All these functions are important, but usually in the beginning, it will give you a pain in the stomach, some nausea, like an antibiotic. But you have to take it
Yes.
because you will
Yes.
see the value after maybe 6 months, 1 year, but you have to insist, you have to persist. So what I'm saying is when you are configuring your PMO, you have to consider the balance of the mix of functions. Because if you focus too much on the antibiotics, possibly you will not survive to see the results. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you have
Yes.
to create value in
Yeah.
the short term too. That's the answer.
Can we use within the design of the BMO, can we use the governance model, the communication model, to mitigate the risks of such resistance?
Of course, because resistance. What is resistance? Resistance is when someone see what you are doing and think, "Wow, it's not for me," or it will be a problem for me. And of course,
Yes.
people don't like to change, right? People don't like to
Yes.
change. So you have to. I usually say that you need two kind of actions. You need some actions to push and some actions to pull. A push means,
Yes.
come on, we have to use it, it's important, the benefits will come on, let's do it, let's do it. But you have to pull people because you have to say, hey, look, it's something good now, that's something that will be good for you, that's something that will bring some benefits for you right now. So
Yes.
everything is related to this idea of generating value over time. Resistance is normal, but you have to manage it.
Yes.
And if you can't minimize the resistance, if you can't manage it, probably the problem is with you because you are not using the correct strategy, because the resistance will be there always, everywhere, in any company, and it's possible to manage, right? And so it's just a risk management approach.
Yes. Sometimes the problem, Bento, that sometimes, as per the organization or the structure or the hierarchy of the organization, some project manager don't report directly to the BMO. So functionally, organizationally, they are reporting to the organizational
Yeah,
manager, not the functional manager.
sure.
That's why
Mhm.
we face such a problems.
Yes, yes.
We have another questions. One of them is related to the perception and the impression about the BMOs as just report generator. Do you have something that say that the BMO is effective and important rather than just report generator and dashboard engine? Do you have some numbers says that it's not
Yes,
only
yes.
reporting tool, it's not only reporting engine?
Yes. I could tell you that maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we had a lot of PMOs like this, right? Today, that's not what happens. PMOs are much more uh, partners, and sometimes like consultants. So they are much more active with their customers. So if your role is just, get the information, consolidate, and show what's happening. Usually it's not so much. So it will be really difficult for
Yes.
you to show the value, because actually what you are doing can't generate a lot of value. It's important, but it's one of the functions. You
Yes.
need a mix, right?
Excellent.
That's it.
Excellent. Excellent. One last question before ending the amazing session is about the difference between operational work and project work. People in some organizations are confused between the business as usual, the daily operations, and the PMO functions that is translated into tasks, start date, end date, and other basic information.
Yes, yes, I see
How
that
can we
in some
differentiate?
places. Yeah, it's
Yes.
a definition of roles, right, and processes, because the PMO
Yes.
is a department like financial, like marketing, logistics, accounting. So every department in your company today, you have the
Yeah.
process mapped, So when you talk about the PMO, it's the same idea. You have to map the process of your PMO, because it's a way to align expectations. And the point is, when you
Yes.
have this kind of thing, it's easier to understand what you are doing, that it's out of your scope. I'm not saying that you will not do
Yes.
it, but it should be clear that the PMO is involved in some activities that are not the spirit of the PMO. You know what I'm saying? So in many companies it happens. It's not necessarily a problem. It becomes a problem
Yes.
when you start to deliver bad value, because now you are part of the operation of other areas that are not doing what is expected from them. So you are just, solving problems that are not yours. So it's something to think
Yeah.
about, right? Because it can create problems for a PMO.
Yes. Understood. Thank you, Bento. In the end of the hour of our webinar, it gives me much pleasure to thank you. It
Thank
was
you
a
very much.
fruitful, informative, and pleasant speech, rich as usual. We thank everybody was involved to make this happen. We thank everybody attended this session. Actually, we will recording the session, and we will be inshallah shared with all attendees. Thank you all, and see you in another sessions soon,
Yes,
inshallah.
thank you very
Shukran.
much for the opportunity. It was my pleasure. Well, congratulate for the work that you have been doing at the chapter. And if you need any support with the idea of a PMO in the Saudi Arabia chapter, tell me. I will be happy to
Yes.
exchange some
We will
ideas and
definitely
support.
will reach you via
Yeah,
email.
it will be my pleasure, and I also can connect you with other chapters that are trying to do the same thing. So I can
With
help
pleasure,
with that.
and it gives us much pleasure and honor. Thank you,
Right?
Bento, for your time.
Thank you,
See you
everyone.
again, inshallah. See you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.